In the 4 decades since the Islamic Revolution, Iran has built and supported a growing network of allied militant groups across the Middle East. The Quds Force, which is part of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, plays a crucial role as the main link with these groups. They provide training, weapons and funding to help achieve Iran's regional objectives. Iran's armed forces have about 610,000 active personnel and 350,000 in reserve. Most of Iran's main proxies are fighting forces from Shia majority countries like Iraq and Lebanon. However, there are also groups from Sunni majority areas such as Palestinian territory, Syria and Yemen that have formed connections with Iran. At the core of this network is Hezbollah, a Lebanese political party and militant group that's notorious for its act of terrorism, acting through proxies. It in fact lets Iran elude responsibility for actions it endorses but does not want to face retaliation for. Iran has successfully employed this strategy throughout the ongoing Israel-Hamas war is the big question here. All right, in fact, we are going to go up to the big wall and try and show you what exactly is going on over here and basically what Iran has been up to and how they actually have used these proxies to not only target their enemies but also fool the entire world. Well, this is in fact the brass tacks when it comes to the structure of the Iranian armed forces. Like I said, the active personnel at this point in time is 610,000. Reserves is 350,000, which makes it quite a hefty and heavy deployment of personnel. The general staff of the armed forces is of course the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which also protect the president. The Islamic Republic of Iran Army, which takes care of the borders, is also responsible for training some of their proxies. And this is perhaps a pattern that the Khomeini or the Khomeinis have used for decades now. Well, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Sepah, is also very, very strong, and this is the breakup of that. The ground force has about 150,000 people. The Basij volunteer militia, which is of course trained for a couple of years and then thrown into the mix, is around 6 lakhs. The Quds Force is at 5,000, which is of course the elite that we are talking about here. The Aerospace Force is around 15,000. The Navy is around 20,000 personnel. It's the Quds Force, which may be less in numbers, but what they lack in numbers, they make up in strategy and sheer aggression. Once again, the ground force has about 350,000 personnel, which means that the ground assault that would be carried out or potentially carried out by Iran is something that Israel should be worried about. Iran's air power is also something to be in fact looked upon. They have a number of technological advancements which of course predominantly have been provided to them by Russia in the last few years. The MiG-29, something that India has also procured and uses, is with Iran. They have 24 of those. It may be old in technology, but the muscle and the maneuverability that this craft brings is of course unmatchable. The Sukhoi is also a very powerful air assault plane, which definitely can create troubles for Iran's enemies. The Chengdu, the Chinese aircraft, which of course has been very contentious even within China, is something that is with Iran. They have 17 of those, and these are the combat aircrafts. Of course, they also have the Hesa-Seki, which is a US-Iran joint venture aircraft. The technology was provided by the Americans. They have 12 of those. This also has the propensity of going at max speeds. And this is basically what we're looking at in terms of the geostrategic or the geopolitical outlay that Iran has to deal with. It's not exactly very close to Israel, but what it lacks in distance, it makes up in terms of distance by technology. The Khadab Hezbollah has about 20,000 to 30,000 personnel. The Badr organization has the same amount of number. The Aseb al-Haq is also in fact comprising of around 30,000 people. And the Kataib Sayyid al-Shuhada has about 10,000 to 20,000 people, which make it a very proficient force to deal with. The Hezbollah, of course, something which has been spoken of throughout the world in the last few days because they just lost their head, is they work in tranches. They work in basically ways that is not only inconspicuous but also very deceptive, especially when it comes to what they call the Zionism threat. Hamas has about 30 to 40,000 members. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad has about 15,000 members. All of these solicit support, financial as well as strategic and combat support from the country of Iran. It is there are some more brigades that Iran supports, and they also in fact have pledged that they do not want Israel's presence to be there. They don't believe that the country of Israel should exist, and all of these have been funded by Iran at some point or the other. So what we're looking at this point in time is an all-out war against Israel, but not directly through Iran, but also through a number of their proxies, and that is something which is a cause of big worry for Israel at this point in time. This is something that we've been discussing, but we're going to discuss this again with our guest. Joining us on the show is Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director of India Foundation and defense expert. Dr. Vail Awad, West Asia strategist, is also with us on the program. Dr. Swati Rao, fellow at MP IDSA, is also joining us on the broadcast. General Katoch, if you can hear me, sir, I'll begin with you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, sir, the attacks on Israel continue. We just broke off a suicide drone attack, which the Israelis, we'll find out in a bit, were able to ward off or not. But the fact of the matter is that all these proxies that Iran has funded, it has catered to and nurtured, are finally going to have their day in the sun.
Thank you, Vineet. Vineet, when I look at this conflict, I do not see any invasion taking place of Israel. When we are looking at the war in 1973 or the Six-Day War which took place earlier, I don't see anything. I don't see any movement of troops by any of the surrounding countries getting into Israel. That is one. Number two, as far as the other countries are concerned, if you're looking at Lebanon or from Syria or from the Gaza Strip, these attacks through missiles, through drones, through artillery, that will continue. From Lebanon, it has been considerably degraded.
Oh my God!
It'll still continue. It'll still continue. So from Iran, they have already carried out one massive attack with about 180 plus missiles. They may actually repeat that procedure again and again and again. So what I'm looking at now is the response from Israel, which is going to be devastating to wherever it comes to. Because when these attacks are carried out on Israel, every single Israeli house has bomb shelters. However, in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, and in all the other surrounding countries, we're taking Lebanon or Syria or Iraq, while people have underground tunnels, etc., for the terrorist groups, as far as the civil population is concerned, there is no shelter. They don't have these bomb shelters. No investment has been made there. So I am looking at, when this conflict is progressing, Israel will try to get into South Lebanon, not the whole Lebanon, just South Lebanon, because that is where the Shia population is concentrated, and that is where the artillery attacks are coming in. And they would like to come into about 20 kilometers deep so that they can eliminate that threat. I don't see any other threat coming in from the Gaza, from either the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. The next major threat is going to be from Iran. Now, that is going to be a ding-dong battle between the two. They've already thrown the weight. Israel will respond. It'll be a massive response whenever it comes. Iran will be forced to respond again, and Israel will respond again. Now, I think this ding-dong battle will continue not as a matter of resources, but as a matter of capacity to which country can take the greater pain, which can take that suffering, and that is going to win out. Israel, in my view, will be attempting for a regime change, because if they get a regime change with the help of the US and others, then I presume most of this conflict will vanish on its own. Otherwise, it is going to be a hard slog battle, and I think everybody in West Asia is in for a very difficult time. And if the battle progresses to a very large extent and hits the oil fields, then I'm afraid India, China, and the rest of the world are also in for very difficult times. Vineet.
Right. Dr. Awad, we've spoken for the first time here. What do you have to say about this escalation, and what do you have to say about the fact that Israel is going to be attacked from all sides now, but it has the support of the Americans?
Well, I think the support of the American and the West have been throughout the history of Israel. For the last 76 years, we know that the American have been supporting, and the British promised them 100 years ago that they wanted to establish Israel state in the heart of Palestine. So they think that it is a land without people, and we believe that it is people with the land. So therefore, the crisis is only there because they do not recognize the other side. So 1948, when Israel came to existence, after 1947, the resolution of the UN Security Council, it divided the country into two. One was the 55% of the of Palestine given to the minority Jew, and 45% giving to majority Arabs, and there where the crisis started. So the problem, as you already stated in your beginning of your program, you said it is 1979. So the Iran start involvement in the Middle East. So because prior to 1979, it was Iranian very high with Israelis. In fact, the Israeli president wrote to the American president and told him to receive the Shah of Iran because Iran is a friend of Israel. So therefore, when the Islamic Revolution came, we saw that it has broke into the relation with Israel, and they have opened the Palestinian embassy instead of the Israeli embassy, and ever since the problem started. So Iran developed what is known as the axis of resistance from Syria to Iraq from Iraq to Syria to Lebanon, Palestine to Yemen. So that existence is to make sure that the Palestinian cause has been achieved by all means. So I think there where the crux of the problem lies in Palestine. It's not the fight against Hamas. It's not the fight in the Gaza Strip only. It's in West Bank and East Jerusalem. Israel wanted to annihilate the whole of Palestine, and they wanted to make sure there is no Palestinian state. Netanyahu himself have torn the Oslo agreement. The activist of Netanyahu killed the former prime minister of Israel because he signed the Oslo agreement, Ishaq Rabin, in 1991. And we understand that with the policy of Israel after the Oslo Agreement 92, that they don't want peace with the Palestinians. 55% of the Israeli wanted peace with the Palestinians at that time. When Netanyahu and the right wing came, we only have 5% now who wanted peace. And now we are with the 5% of the Israeli who wanted peace in this region. So if the Palestinian issue has been addressed correctly, then we don't have a problem. The breaking news which you have said about it, I think I have a better breaking news for you. Israel tried to invade now South Lebanon, and there is a major operation going on. And the Israeli helicopters are removing the dead and the injured from the area. And I think a huge ambush. Even Israeli media right now are saying that there's a huge ambush and there's a big and difficult situation. So if these are the developments, you wanted to invade a country, I think the UN Charter provide anybody that any country, any place under occupation, you have the full right to defend your territories and liberate yourself. So there is no terrorist in this region. The terrorist state that they fire indiscriminately, displacing 2.5 million in Gaza Strip, killing more than 600 people in the West Bank, and 12,000 have been detained. 147 Palestinians are killed and injured in Gaza Strip. Do we call this is a selective killing? Or why the Iranian and the Hezbollah till date have not even fired a rock at the civilian of Israel? Only stampede Israeli has suffered and they have injured. But they are only giving messages to the Israeli, we are only attacking the military installation. So I think if we do not address the issue to the international community, to the United States, and to the West, that this is an area where everybody wants to live in peace, except Netanyahu and his right-wing government, I think we are all going to have a regional war and a catastrophe. As Major General said, it will be impact majorly, and India is one of the stakeholders in the food security, in the oil security, and global peace and security.
All right, important points there. Swati Rao, how do you look at this situation? A lot of experts believe that this is not going to spiral out. This is going to be a limited war, a limited escalation, because both the countries, especially Iran, at this point in time, will not, allow its people to suffer under the clouds, under the garb of a war.
Well, I mean, if you look at how Iran has been trying to wield its influence in the region, of course, I will not take a West Asian view, but I'm trying to take a more global view and, then understand this better. I mean, I think that Iran has built a network of proxies and it finances it, it arms it, it supports it, but it doesn't entirely control it also, and we obviously know about the three famous H, which is Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, but but then there are also, war groups that are active in Syria, they're active in other parts of the Middle East, okay? And Iran has been trying to wield its influence through these proxy groups, and that is what Israel has gone after. I mean, if you see what Israel's, war strategy has been, it has also been to sort of weaken Hamas. They have tried to raise to the ground as much as possible. Everybody understands that just by killing the leaders of these groups will not really resolve the problem. Ultimately, there has to be de-radicalization. There has to be a two-state solution, etc. But I think it will give Israel the time to actually, for a level playing field. I think that's what Israel's strategy is. But coming back to Iran, and I would want to go back to my original point, which is that Iran has tried to spread its influence throughout the region through proxy groups, okay? I do not think that Iran is really interested in a full-fledged war, because Iran probably does not have the capabilities to wage a full-fledged war. Why do I say that? I don't say that because one is because Iran's economy remains very fragile. Iran has still been able to maintain its military, so to say, musclemanship, okay, in that region, which is very clear. But at the same time, one has to understand that today, the Israelis are going after all of those channels through which Iran actually arms itself. And if you see that only today, early morning, the news came that the Israelis have bombed a base near Syria, which was very close to the Russian base, where Iran had just received munitions, which were eventually, to go to, to other proxies. Similarly, for many, many years now, there has been news that Iran has been using its closeness with Russia to actually get money through different cryptocurrency channels like Granitex, etc. So what I'm saying is that it is not really a war which is relegated to just the West Asian theater. You see that there are other theaters also getting involved here. And why I say that Iran is not should not be interested in a full-fledged war is because Iran really cannot do that alone. And the other thing is because there is enough American presence in the region. Let's not forget that there are enough US deployments in the Middle East. If you see the Eastern Mediterranean, there are the Americans. If you see the Red Sea, there are several guided missile destroyers. Okay, the US and the UK have launched combined airstrikes against Houthis. You saw the Israelis going after the Houthis very recently. In the Gulf of Oman, there is the American aircraft carrier. Then, if you look at across the military bases, there are more than 40,000 American troops that are stationed, right? And America has also said that they'll be sending more troops. So even though America doesn't want a full-fledged war either, but America has always said that its support to Israel for defending, and of course it's a very, very layered term as to what defending really means, because it's basically a narrative. But if America's support to Israel is ironclad, everybody understands what a direct war would mean. So I think Israel right now obviously has an upper hand because Israel is actually going after the proxies, okay? And one of the ways in which these regimes have been using the proxies is because proxies give them a perfect deniability. So end of the day, it creates a pressure on Iran to do something to prove to the world, especially the Middle East and especially its supporters, that it has the capabilities to remain the axis of resistance, but at the same time, it doesn't want to get involved directly because it has been using proxies for influence. And that is why I see Israel going after the proxies. So that's one part. And the other thing is that as far as how far this is going to escalate is going to depend on a couple of things. One is that does Israel choose to also, how many more Russian bases does Israel choose to actually target? Because then it means a kind of a direct, provocation to Russia as well. And you know that Russia is not really in a position to militarily support Iran right now so much, even though it does, but not so much because of the war in Ukraine. And it would have some sort of a, retaliation of a sort that we cannot really imagine right now. So that's one. That is going to be one determinant. The other determinant is that whether Israel is going to go after the oil facilities, in Iran. And then if there are majorly 3 or 4, major oil facilities. One of them is very, very dense, so from where 90% of, export of oil happens. So if that happens, of course, I agree with other panelists, and that is going to create a lot of disturbance in the global oil prices, and we might see the price of oil jump. And then in that case, I don't know whether Saudi Arabia is going to shore up supplies to manage the, the price or not. So that is a very vulnerable situation itself. And the third would be whether Israel, although I don't really think so, but whether Israel is going to go after the Iranian nuclear facilities. So I think these are the larger parameters which are going to decide whether the war is going to escalate any further. I don't think it's going to be an all-out war for the reasons I just said. But at the same time, I think it is a wonderful opportunity for Israel to actually weaken this access of proxies, because that has been the way and the modus operandi through which this war has been waged. Back to you, Vineet.
All right. General Katoch, there's also the matter of about 100 hostages that Hamas is still holding on to. Do you think that this escalation and this, this vivid approach that both these countries have now taken to target each other is basically going to, consolidate the Hamas's position, and of course, Israel will have, more to fight for?
Very frankly, you see, I think what Hamas has done is unimaginable. It is stupid. It is cruel. And they had no business to do what they did on 7th October. And on top of that, they have taken civilians as hostages. I think each one of them are criminals. I mean, there is no other word to describe it. The war, they still have a chance to redeem their honor. The actions which they have done, despite calling them any other names, have been the most dishonorable in any war fighting. And they still have a very little chance to redeem themselves by returning those prisoners. If they don't do it, I'm afraid all of them will be destroyed in the bunkers which they have created. It's a matter of time, but they will be destroyed. Now, coming down to just two more issues, you see, it was mentioned by Swasti regarding the oil. My fear is, when I'm talking about the oil, if Israel actually attacks the Iranian oil fields, my fear is that Iran will attack the Saudi oil fields. That is going to be the problem, and there will be a blockade on the Red Sea. So whatever oil is there, whatever can be managed to can be taken out, will have to take the Cape route. Circle Africa. And that the insurance costs have already gone up. The price of oil is going to be phenomenally high. It's going to impact all of us very badly. So I hope it doesn't go on that route. If they go on the nuclear route, the Americans have said they won't support it, but it is my gut feeling that the Israelis want to stop Iranians becoming a nuclear armed power, period. And they will do whatever they have to do regardless of what the US wants. They can, of course, take in the third target. But this war, in my view, is going to remain confined to this area. It is not going to spread. Russia is not going to get involved, and neither are the Americans. They will fight it amongst themselves. They will support each other in whichever way they can. But it will remain a localized tribal war. I use the word tribal war deliberately. These are the local tribes fighting, just like they're fighting in Ukraine. I will not go to the extent of calling it a world war. That is a tremendous exaggeration as far as that is concerned. But the point is that this tribal war is going to impact us. And ultimately, it is going to be fought not so much with troops on the ground. Though Israel is going into southern Lebanon, they won't go more than 20 to 25 kilometers, I'm quite certain. They've got very limited military aims there. But for the rest of it, it is going to be fought with munitions. It'll be missiles and artillery and drones and what have you. They will hit each other as much as they can till both sides get exhausted and one says, okay, we've had enough. And at that point of time, it'll stop. But there has to be a desire. It is not simply a desire on the part of Israelis to say, we accept the Palestinians. I think it is equally important for the Palestinians to say very clearly and unequivocally, we accept the state of Israel. We accept the right to existence. And once they say that, I think that is the first step towards peace. Otherwise, I don't see peace coming to this region. Vineet.
Right, good points there. And Dr. Awad, what do you make of the observations made by General Katoch that this is a tribal war? And secondly, if Iranian oil reserves are going to be targeted, then what kind of a rerouting or shape is this war going to take?
Well, I'm more afraid than General Major General Katoch in the sense that if the Iranian attack the Daimona nuclear site of Israel and the nuclear radiation come, because Israel is the only cuddling boy in the appetite regime of the nuclear states, that they do not even declare their 100 heads of a nuclear arsenal. And if this radiation comes, we will all have impact. Israel have been after even a catapult and even a balloon flyers in the border. So I don't see the dangerous only lies at the regional countries more than the Iranian itself or the American who's staying 10,000 miles away. So I think we all calling for peace and solution to the problem. Does Israel occupy Syrian Golan? Yes, it is under the UN Security Council. It's an occupied territory. Does Israel occupy Shiba Farm in Lebanon? Yes, it is under the UN Security Council resolution. It is occupied territories. Does they occupy West Bank and Gaza Strip? Yes, they do occupy. Do we have the right to liberate our territories? Yes, we have the right. Arab countries, as you know, Major General, 57 Arab countries in the General Assembly came to the Israelis along with the Islamic nation, told the Israeli, we will guarantee your peace with the Arab coexistence, plus you give the Palestinians their rights to have their homeland next to you. The Israeli bluntly said no. Regarding the exchange of prisoners, in fact, Israel knows, even the Americans said the deal was broken. It was Netanyahu who breached the deal. Even the Israeli acknowledged, even the UN acknowledged, even the European Union acknowledged. Where are we heading? We have a person who was humiliated in Gaza. He took the war to Lebanon. He's taking it to Iran, and there is no solution. You perpetuating a perpetual provocation will lead to permanent war. We are at the brink of a major catastrophe in the region. We must work to have peace in this region. That is me. I am a peace activist. I do not advocate for any war. I do not want to see blood on either side. We do not call for these things. We are not advocate of war. The problem is nobody understands that the crux of the problem is the occupation, annexation of land, and annihilation. This is the actual Palestine, right? This is the prior to 1947. This is actual Palestine. This is now Israel. Even West Bank, even the Gaza Strip has been taken. And what we are seeing maps from the Israeli side. These are the maps from the Israeli side. Greater Israel. This is the Greater Israel, including Sinai Peninsula, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, 1/3 of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. That is where we are heading. We need peace. If the American and the West cannot stop this aggression, we cannot see who is the aggressor, who is the victim. We are not here to judge anybody. We are peace-loving people. We want to live in peace. I do not want to see my children are living as the refugees or getting killed, because I don't have to have a heart to see the people of Palestine getting killed, even if my son is not there or my child. But I am a human being. I do not want to see the suffering of either side.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.